Congress all set to return in 2 weeks. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is ratcheting up pressure on lawmakers to act on gun violence. The country's most powerful Democrat said just yesterday she would not take no for an answer after 2 mass shootings this month. But any push for reform faces opposition in the Republican-led Senate. As Congress struggles to address the issue, we wanted to talk to people who live with the repercussions of mass shootings every single day, and it is tough. Stephanie Melendez's father was killed in El Paso, Texas, earlier this month. He was shopping with his wife and granddaughter, 9 years old. He pushed them both to safety. The Reverend Sharon Risher lost her mother and 2 cousins in the Charleston church massacre. Richard Martinez's only child, Chris, was killed during a rampage in Isla Vista, California. And Nelba Marquez Green's little 6-year-old daughter, Anna Grace, was killed in the Sandy Hook massacre in 2012. Together, they all spoke of the seemingly impossible task of moving on after tragedy.
You go through periods of time when you do feel, the worst thing that's ever happened to me has already happened to me. But at the same time, I'm never going to recover. I don't want to get over it.
You do not?
I don't want to get over it. Chris was our only child. Getting over it would seem to me to be a bit betrayal of my son's memory, and I don't want to get over it.
But how do you go on if you don't get over it?
I feel like I have an obligation as a parent to my son, and that's the work that I do to try to stop gun violence.
You said, Sharon, before we got started, now all the shootings are ranked in categories. What do you mean?
So you have the hate crime category, you have the church category, you have the school category. Bottom line is, dead is a category.
People say it's about Second Amendment rights, the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
I have a right to see my daughter enter 8th grade this fall, and I don't get to do that. And I am grossly, as a mental health professional, offended by the words of our president and members of Congress linking mental illness to mass shootings.
You don't see it as a mental health issue?
The vast majority of people who are mentally ill are not violent by a long shot. Most of the gun violence that we see on a daily basis is related more to domestic violence and misogyny. One thing that isn't talked about a lot is suicides. Families who've lost a loved one to suicide suffer the same grief that we do.
Have any of you ever thought about suicide after this?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say in the early days, it was very dark. And I hope by me saying yes, others can be encouraged by hearing it and ask for help they need.
It was like I died. Chris was everything to me. He was the center of my life. I think the reason why suicide doesn't really, Chris wouldn't want that. I'm all that's left of my son's memory. I'm keeping him alive by being alive.
I just want to be with her.
That's
That's really what it is. I want to be with her.
Oh, yeah.
And I would, if I could, I would just say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you didn't get what you deserved. But I'll stay here for the work that needs to be done. But I just want to be with her.
I so feel that, Nelba, when you say, I just want to be with her. I just want to be with her.
I have this
It's hard
beautiful, brown-skinned, curly-haired, singing daughter. And I woke up one morning and I didn't have her.
We have to think about the people who are the shooters. In all of these cases, they were young white men in their 20s.
We don't like to talk about race in a lot of these mass shooting situations, but I think it's an important conversation to have.
But Sandy Hook wasn't a race issue.
It wasn't, but it permeates everything, because I'll tell you an interesting conversation my husband said to me shortly after the shooting, and he goes, I've spent my whole life as a black man in America trying to convey that I'm a safe person, especially in white environments. I look people in the eye. I make sure not to take up too much space because I'm a 6 foot, 6 inch, 300-pound black man. Yet a white boy killed my daughter, and I'm not allowed to look at him or look at others in that way, right? I'm supposed to give a grace that I have never been given as a black man in America. However, I will. I wish people would give that to us. And I sat in the passenger seat and I just cried with him.
Emmett Till's mother allowed people to see what had been done to her son's body, and that changed the game in the civil rights movement. Where are you all in people seeing the damage that is caused when your child, your father, your loved one is shot, massacred?
They need to see it.
You think they should see
They need to
it?
see, people are visual learners. People need to see the devastation.
I think it's a fair question. I think it's an important one to discuss. I think
How many times was Anna shot?
Many. Many.
Would you have wanted us to see that?
Absolutely not. If this beautiful 6-year-old baby, her living picture, her voice, her affect, everything about her alive didn't change you, her photo dead wouldn't change you either.
I say, if gun violence in America does not make your heart hurt, makes your soul cry, if you can't feel that, then you can't feel anything.
It's really tough to hear again, and I was there, and it's tough to rehear it again. And I think part of the reason why they're speaking is they said maybe if people hear our stories, they will hear us, really hear us, and maybe that could lead to change. And they all said that they enjoy talking about their loved ones. It's not something they run away from. They want to have a conversation about it.
At the same time, you could tell it was difficult for them at
Very
moments.
difficult.
And Nelba there said that she does it because there's work that still needs to be done, and
Exactly.
she's here for that.
They all feel that.
Is there one thing that they are looking at next that they hope will happen?
Well, we're going to talk about that in the next hour. We're talking about forgiveness, and we're talking about the possibility of change. But yeah, they were still hopeful. But Tony, to be honest with you, it's very, very hard. Because so far, nothing has changed.
And with all the shootings that continue to happen, that I'm sure just re-traumatizes them. I know when we spoke to
Exactly
students
right.
at Parkland after
Exactly
Dayton
right.
and El Paso, they said they relive it every single time this happens.
And what they said too, and we all sitting here believe this, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. You have to ask the question, who is next?